And we're live. Welcome, everybody. It's the Mindstate Marketing Hour with Will Leach. He's the author of Marketing to Mind States. It's the book with a new look. If you haven't read this book, I really encourage you to get it because when I read it, it connected a lot of dots that I'd been feeling, but I didn't have the words for. And then here's this mad scientist that had written this book. And before that, I was writing messaging, doing marketing messaging, what I call a one-size-fits-all messaging. And Will help me understand is like, that's wrong. You're dropping a ball. If you understand the states of mind that the folks are in when they consider your solution, then you can relate with them. You can build trust. They can feel safe. And obviously, it gives you a leg up on your competition. So, Will, good job. I appreciate you doing that.
It was my pleasure. A lot of work, but a lot of fun too. You know how it is when you get to work on your passion, Steve.
Yes, it is. There's all this resistance that you push it off. Am I really the one to do that? But you did it. So good for you.
Okay.
So we're rolling in to our intro here. It's Will Leach. Today we're going to talk about, here it comes, using artificial intelligence to improve your business without losing your humanity. Will, what do you mean by losing humanity?
Well, I think what we're going to learn today, a little bit for you guys out there, you probably heard about artificial intelligence. Many people are not using artificial intelligence. And when you first step into the world of artificial intelligence, especially if you're a small business owner, it's very easy for you to rely so much on these new technologies because I'm going to talk to you about a couple of different ways you can use these technologies. And you rely on them to such a point where you forget that the person on the other side, your customers, are human beings. And artificial intelligence does not help you become more human. In fact, I would argue that it takes you a little bit away from your humanity and your human nature. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that today. Talk about some of these technologies to help you improve your business, help you grow, but also make sure that you're not over leveraging these technologies and hurting your business as you use them.
Before we get going, I just want to say I really enjoyed our last conversation. That was excellent. And if you guys missed it, be sure to go to the YouTube channel. You can catch it. But we talked about a lot of cool things. You want to kind of give us a little brief overview there, Will?
That's right. Last week, we talked to Melina Palmer. She is a small business solopreneur, in fact, but she is making huge waves in behavioral science. She talked about, she has like the #1 rated podcast in behavioral sciences, and she did it all by herself from her house. And she found some blue ocean, area where nobody was talking about it. She jumped in. She's got over 500,000 downloads and making lots of waves in our industry. And we actually even talked about artificial intelligence in that session, just coincidentally, So we even talked to, and she was excited. She's like, my gosh, she's a solopreneur and she's making some big, big waves out there. So always love to talk to Melina. And if you have not watched that podcast or listened to that podcast, you should. A lot of great stuff if you're a solopreneur trying to make a difference in your industry.
That's right. So you can find that on Buzzsprout, all the places that you like to listen to podcast. So Mindstate
Marketing Hour.
Marketing Hour.
That's right.
I only said it a million times.
Is this AI? Is there AI back there? What's
yes.
going on with you?
Yeah. This is not Steve. This is the AI. So
AI Steve.
All right. So AI is not the future. It's here.
It is. I remember when I first heard the term AI, it might have been actually from Terminator. It was a long time ago, right? And we've heard the term AI in movies and in science fiction. And you may be out there thinking, yeah, I probably should look at that stuff when it's available. Guys, it's here. It's readily available right now, whether you are a large corporation or you're a solopreneur. There are technologies out there right now that can make your life easier. We're going to talk about those things. So this is not something you want to put off on the back burner because you are missing out on some great tools right now. And you may be even thinking like, well, okay, what is artificial intelligence? Steve, are you asking that question right now? Like, what is artificial intelligence? Is this where the robots take over?
Yeah,
I
was wondering.
It's coming. The robots are here. They're right outside your door. I love how you look, Chuck. Really? No, guys, artificial, and I am not going to give us a large scientific definition of artificial intelligence because I'm not qualified to do it. What I will tell you there is artificial intelligence is the use of machines, the use of computing power to make manual things that you're otherwise doing all the time, making it faster for you to do it because it's doing it for you on your behalf. And oftentimes it's even more accurate than you are. So it's taking the power of computer science and making your job much more effective and efficient when used properly. So there's lots of tools out there. We're going to talk about 3 or 4, I think 3 anyways, for sure today, on how you can improve your business. But these things are out there, readily available, low cost many times, and it's helping you become more efficient.
So you're used to, or you've been participating in the use of artificial intelligence if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, any of those social media platforms, you've been participating in some way, either here's how we'll say it. We go through the internet and we give off an exhaust of data. Okay. So imagine this data wafting behind us of information of what we looked at, how much time we spent, etc. And so there's machine learning, there's all these other technologies going and collecting that and recognizing patterns and adjusting the next suggestions for us based on our past patterns. So many people can go, well, I'm concerned about this. Elon Musk is talking about the ultimate dangers that exist for society. But yet, as small business people, we need to understand that we can take advantage of it, and it can help us do what? Use the tool to recognize successful patterns that it suggests to us that we can pick from and apply it to our daily business activities.
Yeah, one thing I love that analogy of the exhaust, and the reason why this is so useful is imagine if you had to pick only one of your customers and watch everything that person does on the internet, everything, and you're writing it all down manually. And you're like, okay, wow, they really like this one, they like this one. And then you're going to look at all that information and then say, wow, here's a pattern. They really like cars. And then with that pattern, then you're going to go out there and try to place an advertisement that connects you with wherever they're looking for cars. And hopefully you're connected in some smart way to where it makes sense. That's what machine learning, I love what you just said. It's taking what you would normally do, but it's doing it at the exponential level where you can do this with hundreds and thousands and maybe even millions of people so that you know them better and actually can place better advertising to them. I love that exhaust idea. It's really, really smart.
Yeah. So your next topic that you want to talk about here, AI should not remove empathy. It should enhance it. And I think that's the trap that most marketers, folks that get enamored with technology, and they use it in a way that's offensive or doesn't feel right to ultimately humans that it's supposed to help make better connections.
No, that's right. I go to this example quite a bit, would be the chatbot on your website. And the chatbots are oftentimes, in fact, almost all of them nowadays are AI enabled, meaning that what it's going to try to do, these chatbots, is recognize that there are certain series of questions that people ask, and it's going to try to answer those questions on your behalf. And that's a classic example of how it's pitched to a small business owner. It's like, hey, we can put a chatbot on your website, where lots of people love chatbots. It gets information quickly. I don't have to go search for information. The problem is that sometimes these chatbots can, one, give your customers wrong information in a very impersonal way, by the way, or it can actually take the place of you talking and engaging with your customer. And it's packaged that way. I mean, I remember the first time it was packaged to me was this idea of that it can do the work for you. You don't have to pick up the call. You don't have to do this. Like, you have more important things to do. Guys, there's nothing more important than talking to your customer. I am telling you, there's very few things that you should put in front of you talking to your customer. Maybe like talking to your wife. Like, that's up there. Like, you got to be talking to your customers and hearing their language. And if you have technology or artificial intelligence that's doing that conversation on your behalf, you're missing out on some great stuff. So let's not remove empathy. Let's use artificial intelligence to improve our empathy, to find those patterns, Steve, like you just said.
Mhm.
Let's find these patterns. Say, gosh, Steve likes cars. Now, how can I talk to Steve about how my service, my product helps him become an even better car lover or whatever? That's how you use it to better understand Steve and show how your product can fit into Steve's kind of wants and needs and his desires to make his life better.
We're used to this, like when we call the cable company, we love those phone calls to the cable
Oh
company,
gosh,
right?
yeah, they're the
Yes.
best. Yeah.
Yeah. So you call them, you get answered. Do you talk to a human?
Oh no,
No,
no.
no. So what they're wanting to do is like, let's let this technology quickly discern who I need to introduce you to because we have a big organization. And so that's the intent of these chatbots is like if we could kind of know, you remember that sales, I don't know if it happens anymore. People come and want to sell you like a water filter in your house or something,
Mhm.
but you know how they want to go through every single feature
Yeah,
and you don't care about every single feature. You just want that one thing. And you're like, would you? This is so annoying. Would you get to the point?
yeah, the
And
point that I want.
yes, exactly. Well, that's what this technology can help you do is like, how cool if you could innately understand and shortcut to that point so we can get to what's important to the folks that are wanting to evaluate your solution.
That's right. That's why it's so helpful to know what Steve wants. So I don't have to ask Steve, tell me a little bit more about all the 5 favorite hobbies. And I don't have to wait for Steve to say, he's like, I really just want to talk to you about cars. Will,
Yeah.
that's what it helps you do. That's right. But like to your point is once you get to that, let's not lose all humanity for
Yeah,
sure.
precisely. So this technology can help you identify customer insights that would otherwise you'd be oblivious to.
That's right, guys. So I'm in the marketing research field. It's my passion, and artificial intelligence is becoming a large part of every single research team out there. So here's this idea that I don't know if you know this, but they say there's a study that was done by McKinsey, and it said about 80% of all of your customer data, everything you know about your customer is unstructured, meaning it's not numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is words that people are either talking about your company, they're on your website trying to get information, they are talking to their friends, they're on customer service calls. So 80% of all your customer insights are in unstructured form. Now, remember how difficult that would be if you have to look at 80%. If everything you know about your customer increased that much, eightfold, and then you had to look at all that information and make sense of it. Artificial intelligence allows you to take all of this unstructured data and make sense of it. So imagine, Steve, that unstructured data, let's say if I'm talking to my customer and I'm doing surveys, or I'm just literally just looking at all their social media posts, I'm looking for anybody that talks about the Mindstate Group. Artificial intelligence can go take all that information and make sense of it very quickly. Say, hey, Will, looks like a lot of people are very upset with you about X situation. Doubt that would ever pull it up. I wouldn't believe artificial intelligence if it said that, Steve. But
If it said that, I'd be involved somewhere in that.
it's like, where's ROIs? Where are they fit in this equation? That's right. So it's being used for research companies. All research companies, all the major research companies out there are using artificial intelligence, and they are doing it on behalf of large corporations. But you too can use artificial intelligence if you're a small company. If you're just trying to make sense of what are people talking about on social media, there are very cheap ways of doing that. My issue with it, and I'm going to tell you guys the first part about this is be careful. So there are lots of different models you can use, really, really cheap models out there. And so, all you'd have to do if you're looking for a company that does this, go to greenbook.org, type in the word artificial intelligence, and there's lots of different companies. They serve as really big corporations, and they serve small businesses. Okay. So we're not going to go into specifics on this one, but I will tell you that many times you will get the exact same output, right? Because a lot of artificial intelligence is kind of at this place when it comes to understanding this unstructured data. And it's going to do two things. One, it's going to do something that's called key topic analysis. So what it's going to do is going to look at all these millions and millions of words and say, oh, this word, this phrase is used a lot. Therefore, it's a key topic. It's going to rise it to the public. It's going to make you aware that this topic is used a lot. It's talked about a lot. And then the second thing it's going to do is it's going to understand what we call is well, let's just call about emotions. It's going to understand that when people talk about this certain topic, it's either a positive emotion they're using or a negative emotion. It may even tell you like, wow, there's this specific emotion. People seem to be happy. So it's not just positive emotion, but it's happy. Or people are talking about your business in a negative way and they're frustrated. That's about as far as it goes. Now, that is useful insights no matter what you say about it, it's useful. What I want you to think about though is that to get real empathy, to really understand that frustration, you need to dig in on those conversations, look at that data, understand, look at those sentences and say, what are they frustrated about? And how can I connect? How can I correct for that? That's why you have to be involved. If you just get a report that says, 82% of people say website, or that's a key topic, website, and they're frustrated. What do you do with that information, Steve? I mean, you know a little bit more, but you got to dig in, talk to some more of your customers, look at that actual data and figure out where are they frustrated on the website. Maybe it's that damn chat bot that you have that's trying to answer questions on your behalf when all they really wanted to do was talk to a human being.
Yeah, so that's where the disconnect happens, because the artificial intelligence can't connect that to emotions. Okay. So when you think about the frustration, when they say website and they're frustrated, well, the trap is we'll go to features. Our websites are easy to use. But what you're forgetting is that emotion is making me feel something. And if we can recognize that, and as a human connect the dots, oh, it makes me feel insecure when my website's not working.
Mhm.
So I feel like I'm failing as a business person. I feel like I'm failing my customers. And if we can, as a human, recognize that, then that's where these become very complementary in nature.
Mhm. Very much
That's,
so.
yeah, Peter Thiel talks about it in his book, 0 to 1. It's like, so you can get, like, you upload your pictures into Apple Pictures or Google Pictures. Well, it can quickly discern, oh, that's my dog Fern, and it categorizes all. Well, that's artificial intelligence working, right?
Mhm.
But I can do that with a 2-year-old.
Mhm.
He talks about, right? Your 2-year-old goes, pick out all the pictures of my dog. They can do it. So it's like this is important technology, but it still takes us to really make the connection, and that's where the competitive advantage comes into play.
Well said. Well said.
So it can help you design highly effective advertising.
All right, let's remove ourselves from the world of understanding your customer and let's get to brass tacks, which is you're out there trying to sell your service. You're trying to market better. And there is all sorts of great technology out there and artificial intelligence to help you become a more effective advertiser. And actually, we just talked about it with Steve was talking about, YouTube and Facebook. When you place ads on these, there is artificial intelligence out there that's helping you place those ads so that it is placed to the right person at the right time. So you're already doing it if you're doing any kind of social media advertising. But did you know that artificial intelligence can also help you write better copy or to pick better pictures for your advertising? So there's companies like Copy AI or Copy.ai. There's Copysmith. There's Headlime is another company. The one that we use, Steve, right? And you introduced me is this company called Jasper AI. So yeah, if you want, you can even probably talk a little bit more about what Jasper AI does for you, and I can talk a little bit more about what it helps me do as well.
Yeah, so Jasper AI is like, so we have content writers. They're very talented. They're highly trained, and so do they need artificial intelligence to write great copy? No, but it's impossible to scale. And we don't wake up every day. Hey, I read this book called Minds Marketing to Mind States, is that we are in different moods all through the day.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's say you're not in the best headspace as a copywriter, you're in a different mind state.
Mhm.
This tool can give you inspiration and help you consider all sorts of options that maybe you didn't have the energy for today. Maybe your dog ran away and you're still upset.
Mhm.
Your This tool can quickly get you focused, give you options you didn't consider, and then you can take it and build upon it.
So explain a little bit more about how it works. Because people are like, what is this tool all about? What the heck is this thing?
Yeah. So you go in, it has different templates, but let's imagine like there's a age-old marketing framework called ADA: attention, um, interest, desire, and action. I think I'm getting that right. Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, so you go and just kind of give it a little insight, the name of the product, maybe what it's a little bit about, what's maybe a problem, and then you tell it to give me 3 versions to look at. You can even say, make the tone of voice understanding and empathetic. Okay. Now, what this tool has done, it's gone out and observed successful content and the patterns behind that successful content that gets clicked on often, read a bunch. It is high in the searches. And so it's going to take those patterns it recognizes and apply it to the results that it presents to you. So you, being highly trained, can recognize, oh, that is great. That's one word I wasn't thinking. That is so awesome. You can take it and put it and then tweak it a little bit. And you just saved yourself maybe about an hour of work and got to the essence of what you need in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, it's so helpful, guys. We talked a little bit about this with Melina, because Melina does a lot of her own content. And some of the hardest things to do is just you get in front of a computer and you're like, oh, what am I going to write about today? What am I going to write about today? And I do the same thing. So I will literally, guys, I'll go to Jasper AI. I will go into one of these templates and I'll write up the word maybe behavioral marketing plus success. That might be as much as I write. And then I'll tell it, okay, I need to write a headline for a blog. Press a button and it'll spit out options just with those, but it'll go out there. And just like Steve said, it goes out there and it's scraped the internet, millions and millions and millions and millions of pieces of content out there. And it's looking for these patterns of when these words are kind of used together. Here's some examples of how these patterns come together. Now, let's be careful. This is not scraping other people's content and it's not plagiarizing anything, right, Steve? It's basically looking for patterns in data and says these words go together. Yes. And when you look at it, it's pretty good stuff. It gets you 80% there. If you're not a copywriter and I'm not a copywriter, it gets me something to react to so I can start working faster and faster and faster. Great tool that is really, really helpful if you're sitting in front of your computer going, I've got to come up with a sales email today. What do I do? And you may just put in a couple of things, just like Steve said, and it helps you get really far ahead pretty quickly. So you're editing content versus crafting it from scratch.
Absolutely. So we have people using this, and it's amazing how much content, great content, that we can produce at scale.
Yep. So one of the careful part on this is that Steve said, as he said, well, you can even put in their tonality if you want to be empathetic or you want to be silly, and it'll go out there and it'll try to incorporate that in there. But if you read it, this is why you don't want to let this stuff do all your copy for you. You don't just take this stuff and then drop it into an email and send it out. One, it's not great, at least the way I look at it, is really bringing a lot of empathy. Sometimes, in fact, it feels a bit unempathetic. It's sometimes, even though it's trying to be silly, sometimes those words that it puts together doesn't sound very silly at all. It doesn't come across for me. So I think you still need to be reading that stuff. And sometimes things can be wrong because it's not going out there and scraping the internet and taking somebody else's content that's been researched heavily. There's pure data behind it. It's looking for patterns it's recognizing patterns in words and putting them out there. So for instance, I've done a blog article one time where it referenced a commercial as an example. Okay. So I was just like, well, I want to see what this commercial looks like. That commercial was aired like 10 years ago. So is that a really relevant commercial that I should be talking about now? Probably not. Like, who remembers a commercial from 10 years ago? Or it even created a quote. But when you look up that quote, it wasn't really somebody's quote. It took pattern recognition. It did not scrape somebody's quote. It basically said, here's some words that go together, and then here's a name. And so that's the example of where if you just took all this output and dropped it into an email, you would be quoting something that was never quoted because it's not doing that. It's looking for patterns. So that's an example of how this stuff, if you're not really thoughtful in looking at it and reading it and making sure that it's writing copy that you wanted to write copy for, it can get you in a little bit of trouble. And the last thing, Steve, I don't know if you've noticed this. Sometimes when you read it, it can feel, I'm going to use a word, and I don't even know if that's the right use of the word. Pedantic? Is that a word? Because da-dun,
Pedantic.
da-dun, da-dun, da-dun,
Yes.
da-dun. It's almost like
Yes.
you're driving on a highway, da-dun,
It's a
da-dun.
rhythm. It's a
Yeah,
rhythm. It's a
there is a
pattern.
rhythm. And when
Mhm.
you and I talk, we have a different rhythm as we're having the conversation. As I write in a different rhythm. Sometimes it comes across as being ta-dun,
Yes.
ta-dun, ta-dun, ta-dun. And you're like, wait, you know what? That sounds very kind of
Mhm.
just, there's no rhythm to it. So again, when you're reading it, think about it as more like, how would I craft this copy into my style, into my personality? But as I say these things, being careful, guys, you got to use this technology. Steve, I think you even have like links that you could, maybe we'll put in the show notes here,
Yes.
where you can get Jasper AI for the cost. It's a no brainer. The amount of information you can, the amount of help it gives you, it saves me easily, and I barely use it, 2-3 hours a week. I
Yeah.
can't imagine if you're doing a ton of content, how much it could save you.
It's crazy. The patterns, those are so true. I want you to consider one thing though. If you're thinking, no, I would never use it, I would I would bet that probably 60 to 80% of the content you read and enjoy online was created in this fashion.
I agree. Like, I remember we were saying, like, it's here now. It's
Mhm.
actually for professionals, it's here and it's been around. Like, I've seen even like news stories, many these news stories. The reason why they get out so fast, it's not because they have people just looking out there and go, oh my God, I heard there's a bank robbery. It's because there's technology that's creating that content and is putting it out there within a minute or two. That many news stories, guys, are written by artificial intelligence, and it's looked at really quickly by reporters, and it gets out. So you're right. I think a lot of content that you're reading, magazine articles, news stories, opinions, stuff like that, it's
Mhm.
written, at least started by AI.
Not just one version, but there's probably 6 or 7 versions that were made, and then they publish it, and they're doing A/B testing,
Yep.
and the one that gets the most gets gets
Pushed out
becomes the
harder.
prevalent. Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
absolutely. Okay, so customer service, how can this do that?
All right. So we just talked about research. We talked about marketing. Let's talk about customer service. Did you know that there are customer service applications that can help let's say if you have somebody who's on the phones talking with your customers, that can help them become much more empathetic, like smarter, more efficient customer service reps. There is a company out there call them Cogito. I think they're probably technically called Cogito, Cogito. Look them up, guys. What it does is it in real time records customer service calls. And then as your customer's talking, it's giving you an analysis in real time. I want to make sure you know this. Like, it's happening in the moment. And it's basically using emotional intelligence plus natural language processing. I'm sorry, natural linguistic processing to make meaning that is kind of more subconscious, kind of, that's kind of underneath the surface of the words. And it's telling the customer service reps information about you just based upon the words you're using, your tonality, your speed of speech. And it's basically, it can give your customer service agent more empathy, more understanding of what's really behind the surface of a call. So here, imagine this. You are using Cogito, and all of a sudden somebody calls you up and you're having a conversation. You're using the normal scripts you would normally do. Hi, Mrs. Smith. It looks like you're a customer. How can I help you? Miss Smith starts talking to you. In real time, the more she talks, the more it's going to say things like, oh, you know what, Will? Slow down. Slow down. You're speaking too quickly, and she can't keep up with your space. It would actually pop up on your screen. It'll give you reminders like, hey, Will, you're the customer service rep. Slow down. Or it'll say something like, it'll do things like, let the person talk a little bit more because you're talking too much. Or she's really frustrated, so make sure you say that you empathize, because sometimes you're in this process like, okay, she's frustrated. I want to help her out. What she really needs is to be heard. So what Cogito does, this company does, is in real time, it's giving you little pop-ups on your screen to say, slow down, you're using too technical a jargon. She's really frustrated, Will. Need to listen. So it's helping you to become more empathetic and really understand kind of what her feelings are, which we all know. We talk about this in the show. Your feelings are your entire consumer experience. It's not really that at the end of the day, you gave this person a refund. That's not really your job. Your job is to, at the end of the day, you made her very happy to doing work with you, and she's going to talk about her experience with you. That's your job, and you just happen to deliver on that because you gave her a refund or whatever. So it helps you really become much more authentic in customer service because you're really thinking about her needs, his needs on the other side of the phone, and it can help you become much more empathetic.
You think about you're running a customer service center where you have to answer phone calls. Uh, Back in the day, the one that was the best at it had a natural inclination, natural empathy. Some people are tone deaf in that way, right? And
Yeah.
so obviously this would be appealing to if you could help a tone deaf person to start to have more connection
Mhm.
with a human using technology.
That's right. Absolutely. Like you said, if it tells me that, if I didn't really recognize it in her speech, but that she's really frustrated, that gives you a pause for a minute. Go, well, let me hear her out. I want to hear. And then you can start empathizing. Like, you know what? I would be so frustrated with this as well. I was overcharging my bill, as opposed to let me just get to the solution as fast as I can. What people want to be, they want to be heard. They want to be like you talk about all the time, right, Steve? They want to be understood. They want to feel safe. And
Hmm.
how would you not know that unless you have true empathy? And some people just don't have that empathy. They just 18-year-old kid trying to make, a buck during college or before
Yeah.
college. They don't have that level of, empathy, maybe that's something that they need to have.
Yeah. So this thing, I used to, there's a trap in a conversation when it starts to, when someone calls in, they're upset, you can feel attacked.
Mhm.
So you're going into a protection mode and you're totally turning off being empathetic. You're missing if you're a little bit trained, you can like back up and I call it out of body experience where you could if you could kind of back out of the situation and look at the two, then you would have more empathy, right? And
Mhm.
so that's what this tool is
Yeah.
doing is helping you like have someone, hey, this is not about you. They're feeling upset.
Yep.
Oh, then you recalibrate.
Yep. And we know what it will do soon. I don't know, and maybe it does it now. There are technologies out there, I'm sure, that do this. Is that it could give you different scripts because there's some. Imagine if you're AT&T, you have customer service centers that thousands of people are manning across the world, and what happens is sometimes we just read. You can tell when you're on the customer service call and somebody's just reading a script. And it's frustrating because it's like you don't feel like you have empathy if somebody's saying the exact same script. You can just tell when they're reading. But what this could do is create and craft scripts in real time. In fact, it'll probably do that in the future. If it's not doing it, it will soon. It'll craft real time scripts for your customer service agents, so they don't have to come up on the fly. They don't have to necessarily build this empathy. But that's the problem. This is where we got to be careful, guys. Is because if you rely on these AI technologies to make your customer service agents more efficient, it will become very natural for them to just read the script. And they're not really creating greater empathy and being kind of helping your customer feel safe. They're reading a script, even if it's been designed to be more empathetic. People know, people can tell it's that pedantic, as I say, it's probably that script that just keeps coming on
Yeah.
again and again. So, guys, it's a great training tool, I think. Um, in the moment, it'll give you a couple of pop-ups, but what I would want to do if I had a call center is I wouldn't let people use it all the time. I would let it come in every so often because I want my customer employees to feel that feeling, to know that they're speaking too quickly, to know that they're using words that are too kind of esoteric. I want my customer service agents to know that, and I don't need to say it every call. I just want them to see their own patterns, and that's how I would probably think about using it right now.
Yeah, so true. The problem with this technology is it needs a very large sampling of data
Mhm.
to recognize patterns and to be accurate in its suggestions. And that's why right now humans need to be able to look at that and go, that's off.
Yeah.
Don't use that. That's off. But if you're being lazy, then that's the trap
Yeah.
of relying on this.
Yeah, it goes like the AI copy. The trap is if you don't reread that, you're in a
Mhm.
lot of trouble. But if you read like, oh, that's just off. And in fact, even sometimes, and it does a really good job, guys. But sometimes the two words really don't feel like they should go together. Like there's something off on the
Mhm.
grammar. Get rid of it, right? Because it's not doing that work for you. It's just giving you a really good head start.
So, how can it help you build a stronger
Sales.
team?
Yeah, sales team. So there's other companies out there, and this is kind of one of the companies is called Gong. It's a huge company, guys, but there are other competitors, and like I said, there are other companies out there that can help you as a small business. But let's say you have a group of salespeople, and you're bringing in salespeople. Probably right now, turnover on sales is a lot for you, and so you're bringing in new salespeople. you probably have some sort of training involved that's going to help them become better in sales. Well, there are companies out there that use AI to help train your salespeople. Gong is a company that does this. So here's what they do. Imagine that all the time it's recording your telephone calls if you're a salesperson. And it's recording these conversations. And then what it does is it uses NLP, natural linguistic programming, plus algorithms after the call. So it's not in real time, after the call, to do an analysis of the call. And let's say if you're on 100 sales calls a day, right? I mean, it's really fast calls. Hey, I want to talk to you about this certain product. 100 calls a day. It'll take all 100 calls and it'll find patterns in the way this one particular salesperson is managing calls. So for instance, it will say things like, hey, you took more than 30% of the total call talking about your product. Way to go. Or it says you took 70% of the call talking about your product. That's not good in sales. You don't, that's you being too forceful. Or it'll say things like, it'll tell you, oh, listen, during that call, you discussed something that needed VP approval. So next time that actually you need to pull in your vice president. So it's going to take in all this information and then help your training department and your salespeople understand what tendencies they have, and also tell you some things like, hey, it'll remind you, you promised this person on a call that you would respond back to them in 24 hours with this information. You know, when you're in the moment, you forget that stuff, Steve. You're like, and you go to the next call, you go to the next call. This technology will actually say, you made a promise to this person. Here's your list of promises you made across the day. Make sure you follow up. So it's really good at it's almost like having your manager right next to you, which could be scary if you're a salesperson, but having your manager right next to you taking notes for you. And but rather than doing it in the moment, it's going to let you know at the end of the day, maybe the end of the week, here's what's happening, here are your tendencies. And of course, if you have hundreds of salespeople, it'll take all those tendencies. It'll pinpoint really good salespeople that are doing things right. It'll record those conversations, and you can use those conversations as training for the rest of the sales force. Like, hey, Jimmy does a great job at really helping customers understand the dynamics of the marketplace. It'll take those recordings, create sales training for them so they can hear how Jimmy, the person who's really good at doing that, so that everybody gets that talent. And so you can kind of almost use the wisdom of the crowds to better your entire company, because some people are really good at empathy. Other people are really good at explaining technology. Other people are really good at getting the trigger and sealing in the deal. It'll take all this information and create training for your entire sales team. So it's a really cool way of getting fast, immediate feedback on your sales team and making them better.
I think that's one of the things about a leader that is enlightened is they start to recognize where their team members are at their best and then position them to where that gets applied in their day. So they become more fulfilled. They feel better. You're making better progress instead of trying to correct them on the things that's not in their strengths. And so this tool kind of helps you think, oh, I could get Jimmy or Janice or whoever,
Yeah.
and put them in positions where they're more fulfilled.
Yeah, and imagine, like, if they're really good at something, they probably feel good about it. They're fulfilled. Now imagine showing, hey, Janice, like, could you lead a training or, a training event talking about how you do things, like how that would make her feel so great. Like, oh my God, I get to talk to 25, 35, 200 people about my passion. So it does that stuff for you. So it makes you feel even more, or makes her feel even more fulfilled, right?
Yes. All right. Well, this is excellent, Will. Actually, there's a way to take advantage of technology, even for small businesses, to uh, be more human, to be more empathetic.
And
Great
efficient.
topic.
And
Yeah,
efficient.
efficient. Well, that's where the rubber meets the road in the business world, right?
Yeah, go try it out, guys. If you're wondering, go try it out. At a minimum, go and use Jasper AI. It's just an easy, fast way of taking a step into that space of AI. It'll better your company.
Yeah, let me pop that. I'm going to pop that link in while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
Here.
of course.
So this will get you like 10,000 free credits. I popped it into the chat area. So if you guys can click on it, it'll take you there.
Great.
But thanks for bringing that up there.
Of course.
So now we're going to transition. This is where we get to see Will dance a little bit. Let me get the music. He loves this music, I swear. Steve, that music's distracting. Exactly. We want to see you dance. All right. So obviously, this question you would expect: how comfortable, Will, are you with the idea of using AI in your business dealings?
Yeah, just like I said, I'm feeling more comfortable using artificial intelligence in a small business. I have a small business, just like many of you. Feeling good and bad. The good side of it is that, like I said, I'm saving 3 to 5 hours a week just by one technology helping me write better, faster content. The downside of it is that the bad side is that I want to make sure that I doesn't kind of prohibit me from really understanding my customer, talking to my customers, etc. So I'm trying to find that balance, good and bad. The good side, it makes me more efficient. The bad side is it removes me from my customer. I'm trying to find that balance. I would encourage you to do the same thing. Don't be so removed from your customer because you're using these technologies that you forget that they're human beings and you should be having an interaction with another human being, not a robot.
Excellent. So can you be a little more rhythmic with your answers to the music? Okay.
I'll do my best.
What are your concerns about AI in business, Will?
Well, I think I'd have to say that.
Can you sing?
Yeah, that's right. I'm trying. Inaccuracy in the data is the one thing, guys, that I'd be really, that's my concern, is that artificial intelligence is intelligent, but it's not perfect. So don't over rely on it, and don't forget that it may pop in quotes. It could put in data that is not real. It's not doing your research for you. So you need to do your own research. So to me, my biggest concern right now is that it's inaccurate, and sometimes, especially if you're in the research field, that can get you into a lot of trouble.
That was awesome. I'm just so proud of you playing along there.
I have like two minds, Steve. I'm like, okay, I've got to say it, but like, let me put it a little smoother, a little slower. It's a nightmare. I'm doing my best.
Folks, this is hard for scientists, and I just want to say that even though Will doesn't wear his lab coat and carry around what are the clipboard and a pen, and here he shows up and he becomes one of us, and this is what I enjoy about this conversation.
I try.
So what do you think is the key to happiness, Will?
Wow, what do I think is the key to happiness? Well, I would go like really like it's got to be finding love or whatever, which is fine, I guess. But I'm gonna look at it from a behavioral science perspective. I actually had this question asked maybe 2 years ago on a podcast. Here's what I said. I said, first, you must be clear on your aspirational goals. I talk about it in my book, but if you're not super clear on where you want to be in the future, then you're never going to be happy, right? Because you don't know whether you're making progress towards your goals, your aspirations. So number one thing you should be doing is absolutely, if you want to be happy, what are your aspirational goals? Is it the meeting the love of your life? Is it starting your own business? Is it having children who are, productive members of society? Whatever those things are, be specific on these aspirational goals. Then, critical, framing. I think that your day-to-day experience and how happy you are is a component of how do you anchor yourself. Meaning, if you're framing or you're anchoring your day to Elon Musk's and he, or to somebody who's super wealthy or has lots of travels and things like that, you'll look at your own life and think, I'm not very successful, because you're anchoring to the wrong situation, the wrong person. So be very careful about how you judge your life. The best way to do that is to make your anchors on one of two things. The first one is yesterday. Am I better than I was yesterday? That's if you can anchor, am I better than I was a year ago? Am I better than I was a week ago? Did I make progress towards reaching my aspirational goal? If you anchor to yourself, it's a much better, more realistic way of feeling about yourself versus, am I making as much money as Steve, at ROI? Because nobody can make that kind of money, right? Nobody can anchor Steve, right?
Nobody.
But let's say you're really upset. You're like going, you know what? I'm worse off. My wife left me. Like, it's terrible. I don't want to anchor on that. Do this. Anchor on something that is happening that is worse off. So remember the thing we all grew up, Steve, where it's like, starving kids in Africa would love to eat this pudding or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Mom was trying to anchor you on somebody who's worse off than you. Mm-hmm. And it's not a silly concept. If you anchor on people that are worse off than you, that'll make you happier. It sounds kind of bad to do that, but there are people who are suffering this world a lot worse than you. There are people right now who cannot get educated, who are not allowed to go to school. And so if you're complaining about a test and realize that there is more than half the entire population of the world is not going to be able to go to school today, that should make you feel a bit better about your current situation. So be very careful about what you anchor on and how you judge yourself. It's everything. It's critical.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Well, great conversation. I enjoyed this very much.
Me too. I'm glad. I didn't know you had all this AI understanding about you as well, Steve. I love
Yeah, well, no, we apply a lot of that in different ways.
Yep.
It's kind of cool.
Good.
You can expand the capabilities of your humans by exploiting technology to do the minutia that wears them out, is boring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very much.
Okay, so here we go. So we're going to roll out. I wonder what's up on the next episode. Well, I know you want to keep it a secret.
I know. I'm trying to think of what the next episode will be.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have a guest here pretty soon, but that's not for a couple of weeks. What is the next? Do you have the next episode? I don't remember it. I'm sure it's something beautiful.
Let's do the technical difficulty episode again.
Not my favorite episode, Steve.
Okay, so you guys, if you don't have Will's book, you need to get it. It's Marketing the Mind States. It's an excellent book. People are reading it all over the world. Japan, your sales have been blowing up in Japan.
Blowing up in Japan. That's right.
You can learn more at themindstategroup.com. If you want to hang out with Will, he's got this thing called Breakthrough Sessions. Will, you want to tell us about that right quick?
Yep. Let's just say if you are struggling with a marketing research problem or a marketing difficulty, you can actually work with me to figure that out for you. So we have these things called breakthrough sessions. It's a 30-minute conversation for free. You just go to the website, mindstategroup.com. You're going to see these red boxes all over. You go to that box, you click it, you're going to see my calendar, pull up a half-hour appointment. You and I will sit down. We'll talk about the situation. And ultimately, I'm trying to figure out where you are today. Where do you want to be? And then how can we use behavioral science to bridge you from where you are today to where you want to be? Sometimes it's a great solution. Sometimes it's not. If it's not, I'll let you know and I'll tell you about somebody who I think could help you if I know of somebody. So really fun, easy way to get to know me and how to use behavioral science to grow your brand or business.
All right. And did you know that Will's got a podcast? That's right. Be sure to subscribe and listen on any of the platforms that you enjoy your podcast in. Also on YouTube, look for the Mindstate YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, listen. We appreciate your fans. You got some questions you want Will to answer, be sure to submit them. And that's a wrap. Will,
Thanks,
have
everybody.
a great week, brother.
Appreciate it.
Good work.